And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have the panel discussion on the state leadership powering wind. We'll just take a few minutes to set the stage towards that. Can you So this is the session, the panel discussion, which we are going to be starting. Just allow us some time to set the stage for this session. The panel discussion on state leadership powering wind. We are going to be exploring how the various states of our country are powering the wind energy story through their vision, policy innovation, and on-ground execution, driving the renewable energy targets, ensuring grid readiness, streamlining the land processes, and enabling investor confidence. So I think I'll just take this time also in introducing our moderator and the panelists as the stage is being set. This high-powered discussion, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be steered by a dynamic leader who brings in a lot of value and experience and expertise in the renewable energy sector, earlier being the Joint Secretary MNRE, and wherein he was instrumental in formulating the solar and the wind policies and also the driving the 2030 targets. And now he's on the corporate side, being the head of the corporate affairs at Suzlon Energy. So he brings in a blend of both the government and the industry collaboration, which was also spoken by the Honorable Minister, sir. So very professional and a rich experience across government and industry. He has been closely associated with India's clean energy initiatives and policy advocacy efforts. The session being moderated by the personality in expression, Shri Dinesh Jagdaleji, the head of corporate affairs, Suzlon Energy. We have our panelists who join us. Once again, joining us as a panelist will be our Secretary MNRE, Shri Santosh Kumar Sarangi ji, who has been at the helm of India's renewable energy mission. We have from the states of Tamil Nadu, Dr. J. Radhakrishnan, the additional Chief Secretary, joining us, who has been instrumental in strengthening Tamil Nadu's renewable infrastructure, ensuring the state continues to lead the nation in installed wind capacity and grid reliability. Shri Puneet Kumarji, the additional Chief Secretary, Power Government of Kerala. He has contributed to initiatives in local self-government, policy innovation, and public sector management. We have Shri K. Rudrappaiah, the Managing Director of Credel, joining us, and Shri Sivakumar V. Vepakoma, the Director of Power Systems, Solar Energy Corporation of India, SECI. And Shri Sivakumar plays a vital role in facilitating the interstate renewable energy trade and ensuring efficient power system integration, supporting the states in realizing their wind power potential. We also have Shri Rajendra Balla, the General Manager RE of GUVNL, joining us as one of the esteemed panelists. Shri Arun Goyalji, the former member Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, CERC, also joins us. Someone who brings in decades of experience in policy and regulation, providing valuable perspective on how regulatory reforms and coordinated state efforts can actually accelerate India's wind energy trajectory. We'll also have Shri Manoj Pise, the Additional Director General of MEDA and the Officer on Special Duty to the Honorable Energy Minister, Government of Maharashtra, who's been contributing to the RE policy and implementation in the state. And then Shri Rajiv Singh, the General Manager, Rajasthan Renewable Energy Corporation, who's responsible for overseeing the solar power projects and promoting RE initiatives, advancing sustainable infrastructure. And in the inaugural session, as you know, the Honorable Minister, sir, recognize the states for their renewable energy missions, the targets which they are approaching, and now we hear from the leaders of the state in this special dialogue which we have with the states, how they are aligning their mission, the renewable energy mission, and specifically the wind with the national goals and India's global commitment of climate change, of sustainable development goals, of the net zero targets which India has committed globally. And we take this various how the states are ensuring their grid readiness, the land, streamlining the land processes, and further ensuring investors' confidence. We discuss with the state leaders in this session. Ladies and gentlemen, in total we have 9 plenary sessions, and there are also going to be 7 technical presentations in these 2 days. Today we have almost 4 panel discussions, and we're starting with the first panel discussion on state leadership powering wind. So I invite our moderator, sir, and all the distinguished panelists to be kindly taking center stage. Shri Dinesh Jagdaleji, moderating the session. Shri Santosh Kumar Sarangi ji, I believe he's going to be joining us. We have Dr. J. Radhakrishnan, Shri Puneet Kumar ji, requesting Shri K. Rudrappaiah, Shri Sivakumar V. Vepakoma, Shri Rajendra Valla, Shri Arun Goyal ji, Shri Manoj Pise, and Shri Rajiv Singh. Please switch on the mics on the stage.
Yeah. Thank you. And good afternoon to all. Secretary Sir has actually been called for the press conference. So, Rudrappaiah ji nahi hai? Okay. So he said he will just join us once he finishes. But in the meanwhile, I think we can carry on such a wonderful panel that we have. Probably in this part and during these days, many of the state additional chief secretaries couldn't join at the last moment. But let me thank first of all, and it's our pleasure, and it's a wonderful occasion for us to have 2 senior level officers with us. Dr. Radhakrishnan ji, Additional Chief Secretary, who has been spearheading the Tamil Nadu reforms in the electricity sector, and Shri Puneet ji, who has all the way come from Kerala on the request of the organizers to really grace this occasion for the Windergy, celebrate with us, and also talk about the concerned states. And obviously we have distinguished officers from the other states, and she has introduced, but also we have former CRC member who will, thank you sir for coming as well, Goyal Saab. So yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday there was a news, and I don't know how many of you have read it. What it said is that the overall installed capacity of the country, and take my words here, the overall installed capacity of this country has crossed 500 gigawatts. So that means the total electric capacity crossing 500 gigawatt yesterday was announced by the Government of India. And it also said that out of that 500 gigawatt what is installed on the day of 29th of July of this year, the overall energy, electrical energy that was generated in the country crossed that 50% mark, which the Honorable Prime Minister had a vision. So out of the 204 gigawatt of peak demand, 50% of that demand was met by the electricity generated from wind, solar, and hydro. What it reflects is that the commitment that the government of India has made to the world, which we have to achieve by 2030 with the help of the industry, but with the help of the forward-looking policies and the reforms of the government of India. But we are talking here about Atmanirbharta partnerships, and here is the established mechanism of a concurrency of subject like electricity where state and center is partnering. And that has led to whatever Honorable Minister said in the morning, the Secretary Sir said about the accelerated pace at which the renewable energy growth has happened. Wind energy today of almost close to 54 gigawatt, the target is 100 plus. We know that we will be able to achieve above 100. The reform says, or the resource adequacy says it has to be 107. The industry estimates it will be 121. The global estimates say that it will be 140. So the numbers actually vary, but in a positive side. But it's good for this. And today when we come across this hall 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what it shows is that the amount of encouragement that the policymakers have given to the wind industry is tremendous. We have 3 state partnerships. We have international delegates who will be able to keenly understand where are we. So coming to the today's discussion, and while we wait for Honorable Secretary Sir, I would like to start with Tamil Nadu Sir. Basically, we all know that the growth of wind has been in Tamil Nadu. The growth and the way the industry has evolved has been in the state of Tamil Nadu. So sir, obviously when we look at the numbers, the amount of wind in the overall RE mix of your state, the wind has substantial. Obviously, share, it is dominated by the resource that you have. But resource alone cannot meet that ambition. It has to be the intention and the passion of the overall industry stakeholders through which this can be met. So my question to you, sir, and I'm sure everybody would like to understand 2 things. One is, what are your plans? How do you want to meet your resource adequacy? You have very high ambitious plan, not only for onshore, but also for offshore. And the second important is about the challenge. And we all know that the grid expansions within the state, and I'm talking about the STU level expansion, how do you see investments coming into the sector? How are you looking at the STU being strengthened to keep on additional capacities of wind? So if I can request you, sir, it will be grateful for us. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the entire very distinguished panelists there, along with my colleague also, and again, Secretary. And of course, you made a very important opening statement. But most importantly, I would start with positives is that I found every state doing something better than the other state. So that's a way when we see the awards, whether it is for encouragement or for this, it generally incentivizes. So I'll come directly to the point is that, Tamil Nadu has had, various stages of growth. Definitely the late 80s and early 90s was something which we really need to be proud of because, annual growth rate used to be 32, cumulative annual growth rate, 32% it grew. It started with support with Danish support and all, Danda supported initiative. If you go and, Muppandal, very near Kanyakumari, is something like, a proof that almost 1,500 megawatt on a regular basis we are getting in one shot. That is one point. But when you talk of the issues, even now Tamil Nadu has the problem with our seasonality and the location is that we have a very good potential, one in Palladam side in Coimbatore, Western Belt. Again, entire thing is southern centered is Tirunelveli, Kanyakumari and our Virudhunagar and Tuticorin belt. So the challenges which I personally find is that, one, many of the units which we started early need to be repowered. So at the policy level, our policies have to be friendly to encourage somebody to repower. So we are reworking again on our policies to make it much more friendly, even though we came up with a forward-looking policy in 24. But we had a discussion with stakeholders who found that there were a lot of problems with the policy. But the second most important challenge as a state, I personally feel in renewable energy is grid management. It's not only state, if you look at countries, Spain, Portugal example, and one day, I think mid of February, we had a challenge in Gujarat. So that is somewhere where I personally feel is that, states are much better off. We are integrated at the top. That is, grid and the renewable energy and thing all are together. So I would personally feel is that, we all need to understand each other's problem, because being seasonal, the biggest challenge is that you have to take advantage when it is coming, particularly, February to May 13th, to be very specific. We dip. Then again October, again it dips. So this is the area where we need to ensure that the storm, put on, put off, that kind of challenge, the other generators are failing, particularly the conventional generators. That is one challenge. Second, that of course can be handled because this is cheaper and we have to encourage, we have commitments that we are doing. But the second most important challenge which the state is focusing on is to ensure that the grid connectivity and evacuation capacity is rapidly increased. Our goal is to reach, if 30 GZ, if we have to reach, then we have to focus on evacuation. That is why Virudhunagar, even though it is completed, some connectivity is required so that 2,800 can be evacuated to Coimbatore, from there to other state. Similarly, northern districts also, we have kept 2 765 kV stations we are keeping. So this is one focus area. Second is, again, we are trying to sensitize people that, you need, the biggest problems which we face is on right of way. Whenever you are actually trying to improve a right of way, 10 acre, maybe 10 kilometer is getting blocked. So that we are sensitizing that, this power is something very essential. If Tamil Nadu had the maximum growth rate in the last year, or if it is contributing in the top 2 or 5 or 3 to 4 states in the country, power is a very important ingredient, and people have moved from assured power to quality power. So that is where I think we are focusing on. It is not just a green energy corridor, which is again a number of substation specifically to help evacuation. Is a focused evacuation is being done. Government of India is supporting us. Then in addition, the other challenge is offshore. While in regular, we can't be sitting back on our laurels that, Tamil Nadu is second highest in wind, fourth overall, fourth in solar, third in RE. That is a fact. But other states are equally catching up and doing. So here I would request the technology providers is we need rapid solutions to ensure that, the requirement of a transformer, the area required is so huge. That itself becomes an impediment. So there I think, we need more technologies. I'm sure with a team like here, particularly though a number of stalls are focused on wind energy, more focus also in helping us to evacuate power and quickly set up substations. The gestation period seems to be so long. So we are all working with our own, and nobody is to blame except us. I am not passing on the blame. So that would be the last point which I would like to make in my opening comment. Then the last would be the most important contribution which these kind of conferences can help us is how the other states have tackled. And the last point is on offshore. We have a huge potential. Government of India is focusing on Ramanathapuram and Tuticorin, and they themselves have sanctioned 765 thing there. But there again, we need to address and sensitize the local communities so they don't, the fishermen community, and find ways where they are not actually going out. That is not a common pathway to see, so that we can tap it. So it's a multi-pronged approach has to succeed. It is not like 0 and 1. Tamil Nadu also cannot keep on saying that we are one of the top states. If we have to continue to maintain our competency, also we need to know the load studies and giving clearances. We need to go much more, like he was talking about ease of business. There we can definitely improve. I find that a lot more transparency can help us. Thank you.
Perfect, sir. I think you went into details about the way Tamil Nadu is strengthening its evacuation system. I think it's a great bonus for the industry, which it can take and have a forward-looking planning. And sure, you mentioned about 30 gigawatt of your vision to go in near future. So that's a substantial capacity that we all should cherish upon. Thank you for the opening comment, sir. I come to Kerala, sir, Puneet Kumar ji, sir. Sir, obviously, you, from a perspective of Kerala as a small state, sir, you have close to 4 gigawatt of renewable energy installed already. But, sir, the Central Electricity Authority has now planned that you also have to meet your renewable consumption obligation. All utilities will have to do that. You take a very, very innovative steps, and when we could really relate to the way you have gone into the distributed solar, you have done a lot on rooftops. But in terms of wind, sir, obviously we know that there is a limitation, but there are still some specific pockets where the state itself can go for wind development. Then it has good substantial winds as we see. So in order to meet your resource adequacy, sir, can you throw some light and what encouragement you would like to give to the audience who are keenly also to waiting to join in the Kerala's development in RE sector, sir?
Thank you, Dineshji. As you all perhaps know that Kerala generates only 30% of its requirements and is dependent on the other power sources up to 70%. And that is not just a number. We are growing at the rate of 5% CAGR. And our requirement is increasing by leaps and bounds. Things are going to change quite drastically when the Vizhinjam port comes to its full operations. Obviously, it will require a lot of ancillary industry support, which will also require power, including various MSMEs and IT and data analytics companies, which are mainly power guzzlers. So we expect that this scenario is going to change, and that is why wherever it is possible, we have already started with solar, rooftop solar. We have done, quite well in the last 1.5 to 2 years. And now the focus is shifting that wherever it is possible in Kerala, we should also try to integrate our onshore as well as offshore wind potential. And we have identified the pockets, Attapadi region in the Palakkad region, and which is known for the elevated terrain and consistent wind patterns, making it very suitable for the wind energy projects. There are about 16 such sites which are working. And then Ramakal Medu in Idiki district, which is recognized for the wind energy potential with existing installations. Very favorable wind conditions. In fact, this is considered to be highest wind potential in the Asia. So these are the ones. But then there come the constraints, so that many of these things are in a very difficult kind of a terrain, where transporting the wind turbines and taking it to a higher level of hub height becomes a big challenge. Though the potential is somewhere upwardly of 2,600 megawatts, it falls down drastically because we have been not even been able to forget 120 meters hub height or 100 meters hub height. We have installed many of them at 75 meters hub height, and which has reduced the potential of the wind power in generation in Kerala. So that needs to change, and there are few challenges which we have identified, that lack of adequate transmission lines, which Radhakrishnan sir just now mentioned, and the substations in the remote and the hilly areas, as it is very important infrastructural requirement for evacuation of the power for the potential wind sites to the demand centers. Transporting large turbine blades of 50 to 70 meters long and heavy nacelles, they also require specialized vehicles. And Kerala, because of its typical geography and the narrow roads, pose a big challenge even for transporting these equipments, which is not only very costly, it also becomes environmentally very sensitive also. And the new generation wind turbines, which are larger and require specialized transportation and installation equipment, have to be brought in. Hilly terrain, as I mentioned, poses a lot of logistical challenges for transporting turbine components. And therefore, what we are thinking is that if it is possible, whenever it is possible, we would like to go in for the green energy corridors under the interstate transmission systems phase 2 in Kerala, especially in the Attapadi and the Ramakalmedu. For transmission bottlenecks also we have to work and find solutions which can provide grid stability in the renewable energy projects. These corridors will enable efficient evacuation of power from the remote wind-rich regions to the state and the regional grids. Airlifting, which is costly affair for the wind turbine components, that is an only innovative solution which could be considered, but only when the costs decline, airlifting will allow deployment of the taller turbines of the 100 to 120 meters hub height, unlocking the higher wind potential and overcoming the limitations of the current installations, which are mostly at 75 meter. So together with these developments, we hope to position Kerala to accelerate its transition towards a more robust and diversified renewable energy portfolio. Notwithstanding all these initiatives, why we are focusing more on the offshore wind power generation, because Kerala is now laying a lot of emphasis on the production of the green hydrogen. We have already Hydrogen Valley Innovation Cluster in Kerala, where we are using the solar power, and we would like to have the hybrid solar and wind power plants which could provide power for this. In addition to that, we look at some of these offshore wind power generation projects contributing to the grid stabilization when we are focusing more on our EV charging infrastructure. In terms of the electronic vehicles, Kerala has 13% of the total EVs in the country, and which is growing at 38% per annum. And there is a huge demand for the electronic vehicles, this EVs. And now we are boosting our EV charging infrastructure also under the PM E-Drive scheme, which has recently been launched. And we have a couple of other innovative projects like vehicle to grid, whereby we would like to directly connect some of these initiatives to the grid so that we can address the diurnal and intermittency nature of the solar power, and somewhere, wherever it is feasible, supplemented with the wind power generations.
Thank you, sir, and you highlighted the challenges, and I take that as a homework for the industry, that in such difficult terrains, one particular remark, and I was listening to the Honorable Minister, that we have land resource constraint, and therefore we need to go bigger and bigger. But on the other side, we have a story which really limits the way the transportation or the logistics infrastructure. The Kerala is an example where we can't even today install a turbine which is, say, more than 75 meters. So I think the challenge for us as collectively is to what next level of technology can be seen, where can we have modular towers? Obviously towers can be modular, but how can we have modular blades? What kind of new infrastructure is required to now really install the onshore turbines? And that I am sure we will have to collectively debate. And this particular platform, sir, I think you can. We welcome Secretary MNRE, sir. So we were just, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, we had the opening remarks of the ACSers. One such, I was just trying to correlate the challenges that Kerala has, sir, which is obviously the limitation on the infrastructure and the logistics that doesn't allow to transport longer blades, doesn't allow to really have, higher hub heights, and therefore the limitation. And probably we'll have to now industry rethink, can we have modular blades? Can we really look at how can we actually utilize such sites using some advanced construction methods? But that's really a homework for the industry, and that's good to debate upon. So thank you for joining us, sir. And this particular session, according to me, probably in the history of the sessions that we do, the events that we do, to have a combined state and center session, according to me, is the, no, we in Hindi we say, "Sone pe suha," it's a feather in the crown, because we can't get senior leaders, senior officers who are driving this country's growth, who are driving this country's ambition on one dais, and the developers, the IPP, the financiers are all able to hear their vision. So, sir, I come back to Secretary MNRE, sir, and under your visionary leadership since you have taken over at the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, we have seen your focus has been towards Atmanirbharta. You have been driving the policies that have been revealed also reflects the commitment that you are showing, that we as collective stakeholders should focus on Make in India. There has to be mechanisms which will drive industry to India. And the Honorable Prime Minister's vision, as we see that Make in India for the world, is truly what your policies have been reflecting. We also see the announcement of ALLM wind, as well as the wind turbine components. We are happy to note that you have released the standard operating procedure that we as collective developers and OEMs will have now to abide with to get our listed and to be capable of or eligible for installing wind turbines. So going forward, sir, while you mentioned that we have and we are aware that the overall ecosystem in this country can manufacture 20 gigawatt of turbines annually. But however, sir, while the announcements are being made for higher and higher turbines, but also capacities, but still we don't see that kind of traction, sir, in terms of the growth and the demand. We have seen a little bit this year, but we don't see that we will be able to utilize the entire 20 gigawatt domestically. So one is on that side while we make our effort. So how do you see that the growth for wind will be reflected through MNRE's policies and the vision that you want to set for the sector, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Jagdale. You have been on the side of the government also, so you are familiar with government's policy making orientations. Supporting domestic manufacturing is something on which the government is fully committed to, and so to that extent, policies supporting domestic manufacturing, whether it is through PLI kind of schemes or whether it is through ALMM and domestic content requirement, will continue to support the industry. But going forward, how do you see a visibility of the wind power's demand given the fact that solar is growing at such a faster pace, is something which I have seen this bothering a few of the wind manufacturers. But I don't think, going forward, the requirement of DISCOMs and our state governments will be more and more in the area of addressing their peak demand period. And to that extent, firm and dispatchable renewable energy supply and round-the-clock supply are going to be important. So many of our future bids which our REIAs are going to do, whether it is NTPC, whether it is NHPC or whether it is SECI, a lot of it is going to be in the shape of FDRE and RTC, where it will be technology agnostic. So whether it is from solar, whether it is from storage or whether it is from wind, we will be agnostic to that, and we will be requiring firm and dispatchable supply. And to that extent, I think wind will have to play an important role, because in an RTC, wind complements solar in a big way, because your generation cycle is almost inverse to solar generation cycle. And to that extent, if somebody is committing an FDRE or RTC, the share of wind will have to be essentially there. And to that extent, I don't foresee any demand contraction for wind in future. In fact, I foresee a lot of greater uses of wind in the future tenders.
Sir, thank you, and I'm sure the way the renewable energy implementing agencies, but not only them, but the demand that the DISCOMs are creating or giving or displaying is towards RTC, which resembles that there is an ecosystem which is not favoring one single resource. It is an ecosystem which favors all three together, and I refer to wind, followed by solar, and then aiding the battery resource, which are its pump storage or battery to really provide. So I come back to you again, sir. One is, while we see for the last 3 years, and so there are some statistics, between 22 to 24, the wind sector witnessed a steady rise in the local content level, and I'm talking to the manufacturing side again. And across the range of turbines, there is somewhere around 64 to 65% is the local content requirement met by the industry. I know you have kept a vision of at least the Atmanirbharta should reflect not only to the wind turbine, but also to the component level. But there are some challenges, sir. I think few of the components and the doesn't really get benefited by manufacturing because of the adjoining countries' more control on the raw material, but also the incentives that they provide. So, sir, if we have to improve the overall DCR to a higher level and say achieve 80-85% Atmanirbharta in wind component, can we see that there is some support that the budget will provide for some kind of incentive mechanisms for manufacturing of those components which are very critical and reflect to like forging, bearings, which are today not really made in India, sir?
For me, having been JS in the ministry, you can't make me commit to a budget.
Just wanted your vision about how wind can be allocated or more DCR, sir.
No, say the policy instruments will not necessarily look only at a budget intervention, but through a lot of other things that we are doing. For example, a DCR imposition or ALMM for components which we have come up with right now, and PLI kind of schemes. So whether a PLI kind of a support or other tax or non-tax benefits for components are concerned. So this is a consultation which is going on right now with the industry. So depending on what kind of feedback and our ability to convince Department of Revenue and Department of Expenditure, the outcome will be known. But as of now, no commitment can be offered.
So that, I agree, sir, but what this particular exhibition reflects is the industry is here in numbers to support our local Atmanirbhar vision that you are setting. That's a very positive sign for us to take, sir. So I would now look at SECI, sir. Thank you, Shiva Kumar ji, for joining this session. Particularly, you have seen your role has been on the implementation side and trying to create the market. But going forward, what we have of late seen is that you will have to evolve something new, and you have been already thinking on that lines. So according to you, what are your new plans, and how do you see wind as a very integral component is in SECI's forward plans for probably, I can say, next 5 years? How do you think, what would be the wind's role or wind energy's role in SECI's future bidding strategy?
Thank you, Dinesh ji. I'm very sure that by 2030, we are going to cross 100 gigawatts of wind in terms of installed capacity. And the ratio will be more skewed towards renewable energy versus or non-fossil fuel versus the fossil fuel, which is just equal today, as you declared. And coming to SECI, till date we have took out tenders for close to 16 gigawatts for wind. 9 gigawatts either commissioned or in some process of progress, which I'm sure in the next 12 to 24 months they'll be connected to the grid. Now, what is the major impediment? What we are seeing is the non-operationalization or delayed operationalization of the connectivity and the transmission infrastructure. And then some are lucky to get the TGNA, but then it leads to curtailment. These are some of the issues which are right now plaguing and kind of discouraging the sector. Kind of discouraging. I don't say that it is the only reason. That is one of the reasons. And second, as rightly pointed out by ACS Energy Tamil Nadu, that the ROW issues. ROW issues also is somewhat delaying. Some states are quite progressive in clearing those issues, and helping the developers to go forward. And it's not the case in all the places. So everywhere it is, the issues are more oriented to the local level rather than at state level. So that needs to be also looked after by the developers. Coming back to SECI's vision, what we are doing now is many states are approaching us for standalone wind installations requirements. We are currently working on tenders, standalone wind for at least 3-4 states. And now I can also proudly say that there's a competition to offtake the already allocated capacity among the states. So there's a positive sign going forward. That is first point. Second, we have we have taken approval of the board for entering in the C&I segment through REIA mechanism. Now we are, in fact, you must be aware that in the month of August and early September, we concluded world's largest green ammonia tender, 723,000 metric tons. And in fact, the whole world is keenly watching how we are going to develop this kind of capacity in green ammonia front. Many of those winners are approaching us for supply of RERTC, where wind is going to play a definitive role. As rightly pointed out by Sarangi sir, the RERTC, wind can definitely help to bring out the costs, overall costs. Even battery costs have fallen to all-time low. In spite of that, wind has a role to play. Wind is going to stay. And if this kind of enabling framework is made in a better way for wind. In fact, in some of the sessions, I was suggesting that we need to develop wind-alone parks like we did for solar. That will definitely give a kind of plug and play. The good part of wind is we don't need contiguous land patches. We need only few locations, and that is much easier to acquire. And the third one is, the C&I is one area. Third one is the green hydrogen. In fact, now the proposed amendment to the Electricity Act, where the industrial consumers also, maybe there will not be any kind of guaranteed supply from state distribution companies. This sector is going to get freed up. So this sector may also actively look towards either FDRE kind of arrangement or RERTC kind of arrangement, where wind is going to play a very active role, and we are looking quite forward with respect to such kind of tenders. And lastly, we are very closely working to come out probably with first of its kind CFD tender in the country. So this is going to open large vistas for creating market width as well as market depth, and kind of managing the risk on the part of developer with some kind of initial funding from our ministry.
No, this is an excellent news. One thing you mentioned, I think there is a competition among states to really sign off the power supply agreements. That's something encouraging, not something it's very encouraging for all of us, because I'm sure any kind of tender, any tender of wind will not remain unsubscribed for a longer period, since states would be very keen to. And you also said about CFD, and I think this is a great moment, because this was the first of its kind. So congratulations to MNRE and SECI for really taking this new concept into play. I take this point and I come to you, sir. Basically, we have seen transmission delays, and SECI mentioned, and everywhere in all states we see transmission delays. So what role you see as a regulator, sir? You have been at the position of a regulator and really looked at the sector very closely. How do you see the transmission bottlenecks can be removed, or transmission can be accelerated by some reforms that as a regulator you can play? Any thoughts on that, sir?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. So, like whether it is wind and solar, transmission is going to play a very, very important role. And it's, normally said that we are all talking about transition, energy transition, but there cannot be any transition without transmission. So as far as the perspective planning is concerned, so we have our 2032 perspective plan ready with us, and so as far as the planning is concerned, I think everything is quite there. So the issue is mainly with regard to implementation. So during my 4.5 years in CRC, so one of the major issue is that we get a lot of petitions with regard to change in law, force majeure. So even though, like, if you see our TBCB, our guidelines, they've been pretty effective, and we've been able to involve private sector in a, I would not say very big way, so around 8 to 9% of transmission capacity, at least at the interstate level, is in the private hands. But when it comes to intrastate level, the TBCB is still to really take off, and there are very few projects which have taken off in the TBCB in the state sector. Now, once you are implementing these projects, and particularly I would say that going forward with the kind of investment that we require in the power sector, private sector is going to play a very, very important role. So the TBCB mechanism is going to play an important role. So once we are over here, so these issues of force majeure and change in law, they become very, very important, because even though we give a timeline of around 3 years for implementation of the transmission project, but due to uncertainties, force majeure events, change in law, so sometimes these projects do get delayed. But here I would just like to point out that when compared to global level, even the implementation of the transmission projects in India at 3 years is considered pretty good. Say a few years back, I was in UK while being member of the CRC. There I found that many of the transmission projects over there take around 10 years to complete, because the issue of, not in my backyard is there everywhere. And similar is the case even in the USA with implementation of the transmission projects. So here I think the role of the regulators become very, very important, because when we get these petitions, we have to see that these are, disposed of as early as possible, because these are the genuine costs which a private player has incurred, and they have to get them as soon as possible so that their working capital issues are taken care of. So in this context, I think since it's a panel, we also have people from the state government, is that, once you are implementing the project, I have seen that the involvement of the states, particularly at the lower level, you see, ultimately the projects get implemented where approvals have to be given by the district magistrate, Tehsildar, and those people. So there, that kind of a feeling, the kind of opportunity cost that is involved in these projects, so that has to be there. These are all linear projects, so even if, say, it's a 100-kilometer project, even, say, 1 kilometer is missing, then the project is not, delivering the electricity. So at that stage, I think it becomes very important that we have to have, more closer involvement, and that kind of a sensitization has to be there, that there are opportunity costs that are involved. And then, in case we have a generator ready, the transmission line is not ready, and the other way around, then all those issues of mismatch, that who is going to pay. Of course, there are clear guidelines now, but still these issues are there which needs to be resolved. So I think I'll end over here. So if, yeah.
Thank you. No, sir, I take sir's point, and I come to Credel MD Rudrappaiah ji. Thank you. He actually has being a state partner, he had a good exhibit there, so he had gone for the inauguration. But sir, Karnataka, as we see, and as we have three prominent state, Tamil Nadu and Kerala spoken. So I come to you requesting your opinion. Obviously, you have evident that over 25 gigawatt of RE has been installed in your state. 8 gigawatt is wind. And when ACS sir was there in the Delhi roundtable, you also had announced that you will be definitely going to meet the resource adequacy, not only through the ISTS, but the intra-state network, and you are going to upgrade. So two things I just wanted your opinion. Obviously, CRC had come out for the non-solar hours, that there will be now, probably we can have the co-location where wind and storage along with the existing solar can come in. So do you have any such plans? Because you have one of the largest solar park in India. And probably when you go for bidding, what kind of bidding frameworks would you like to ensure that wind happens faster at the way it is designed for?
Just would like to give some background context. After 2019, Karnataka did not have any power purchase agreement, thinking that we are power surplus. But during 2023, we realized that we were running short of almost 2 gigawatt power shortage every day. So that is when we started preparing our resource adequacy plan. And the outcome is that we should contract at least 38 gigawatt of power by 2035, by another 10 years. And as a short term, we have to contract another about 12 gigawatt of RE. That's by 2030. That's our target. And as far as co-location is concerned, yes, I think that is the next phase. Along with the wind, the battery storage carries a very, very important role. And since, as Mr. Jagdale mentioned, we had commissioned the largest solar park in the world way back in 2019. And right now we are solar, as far as solar is concerned, we are 10 gigawatt, wind is concerned, we are 8 gigawatt. So solar itself is causing a challenges for us because 10 gigawatt during the daytime we are surplus. And so that's a challenge. To address that, of course, now whatever the tenders we are floating to meet the resource adequacy plan, so we are combining that with the battery storage invariably. And so we are giving a lot of thrust for the hybrid projects, that is solar, wind, and the battery storage. Already we have floated a tender for 250 megawatt solar and then 1.1 gigawatt our battery storage project at Pavgada, that is next to the existing solar park. Of course, recently we have bid another project, that is 100 megawatt battery plus 100 megawatt solar. Now shortly we are going to float another tender for 2 gigawatt solar plus 1 gigawatt hour battery storage. But of course the subsequent the tenders, we have done a detailed study. We are aligning with whatever our requirements are there. So they are invariably combined with battery storage, solar and wind. That's the next phase of the tenders government, Karnataka is floating. Yeah.
So you mentioned, I think you have great plans for enhancing the STU capacities and going for tenders, and you mentioned that the next phase would be wind. And what we see, sir, most of the developers and OEMs see Karnataka as a state where they feel not apart from manufacturing, there is a lot of land and we should really go and do substantial projects, which you see. But on the ground, obviously you have challenges. And sometimes, and I should congratulate you for bringing the order or the change in the legislation where NA is now completely exempted. And I think that deserves a huge round of congratulations to you. Some of the states we are now telling that you and Maharashtra have come up, let's follow such best practices in other states as well. But along with this, how do you see the pain that all the developers now face is the ROW? What next level of reforms as the nodal agency for renewable energy, would you like to comment? How do you see this can be resolved? There are district level committees, there are meetings, there are interventions, but can you throw some light what you are doing on that?
I think this credit should go to our Honorable Chief Minister, Honorable Minister for Revenue, and of course our Minister for Energy, Mr. K.J. George sir, and our senior bureaucrats, Govt sir and all. It was not easy to bring out this major changes to the Revenue Act, foregoing the conversion for because as we see, there are two major bottlenecks which usually the developers used to mention us. One is the delay in commissioning of the evacuation of the substations, and the second one is the conversion factor. Of course, the ROW is also one of them. These are three major constraints. One, of course, as Mr. Jagdale has mentioned, Karnataka government has done away with the conversion process for renewable energy projects. And second, as far as the substation construction is concerned, evacuation, whatever tenders we are floating, I was mentioning about this 12 gigawatt by another 3-4 years. So we have identified 27 substations, which already tender have been done, and some are under construction, and some are under commissioning in a very short term. So we are aligning all these things, the execution of the evacuation and the land conversion process. Yes, and to deal with this ROW issue, district level committees under the deputy collectors have been formed, and we are taking the whole system. Recently, Honorable Chief Minister also has held a meeting in this regard and has given direction to resolve then and there itself. So we are formulating a proper policy to facilitate to investors see that the challenges with respect to ROW issues are resolved immediately without any hassle. So at Cradle, we are always there to facilitate, but the whole system, the government system is involved to see that this bottleneck is taken out, and Karnataka stands number one in place of ease of doing business. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I think along with this, you had been very instrumental in having a very robust government order system. I'm sure you will also put a lot of focus on to resolve those matters as well. I come to Maharashtra, and Maharashtra obviously is a state where the industry requires, and industry is going for green, mostly on CNI focus as well. But sir, probably, obviously we see the kind of policy you announced, and suddenly the capacity is blocked and 2,500 megawatt is over. So the inconsistency or the consistency in having the policy, seamless policy, is very much interested for investors, developers who are coming to your state. Do we have, can we throw, what would be your next steps in bringing the policy for the next 5-year plan or whatever plan you have in place? And what's the role of wind do you pursue as the nodal agency for wind in Maharashtra?
Yeah, Maharashtra is the most power-hungry state in the country. We have around 200 billion units of consumption in Maharashtra. But we already proposed, we have started a process of formulating policy from last December. We have stakeholder, 2-3 stakeholder consultations, and then afterwards we have finalized the draft. We are proposing around 65 gigawatts of REs by 2030. Out of that, we are proposing around 5 to 6 gigawatts standalone wind projects, and about 9 gigawatts will be hybrid projects. We are also planning for REI, renewable energy zones, renewable energy parks like that. And we also propose to have converting old wind projects into hybrid projects, and old solar projects into hybrid projects. That kind of what's already going on. We have plans for 2035. We have submitted our resource adequacy for 2035. We are planning around 90 gigawatts of RE by 2035. Total, it will be around 65 gigawatts by 2030 and around 90 gigawatts by 2035.
These are huge numbers. We all will be encouraged with those numbers, but we hope that so you will be able to release the policy so that the pipeline is not blocked, and such uncertainty that is created can be resolved. So you mentioned about repowering. You also are basically one of the oldest wind farms in India, where in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Maharashtra. And I'm sure they will be now eligible for repowering. Tamil Nadu has come out with obviously they have come out with a policy which obviously sir has mentioned they are re-looking at some of the features there, but do you also intend to have a repowering policy?
Yeah. We are studying right now. We are studying about the repowering, how much of repowering can be done, and we have hired a consultant for that. Will be around. They are studying around what will be the transmission requirement for repowering, as well as any infrastructure development required. After getting all those things, we are going to propose repowering policy also.
Thank you. That will be, we really look forward for that. Coming to, we have Gujarat and Rajasthan, and what I see is that you're fighting for the #1 spot every time. In terms of the last figures that I have, Rajasthan is just higher by 400 megawatt over Gujarat. Congratulations to Rajasthan. But coming to Gujarat, but you are #1 in wind installations that I see is almost 14 gigawatt. And you have inclination and announcements that I see that you are going more and more for your own state bids as well. So, Rajendraji, can you can you tell us and can you explain the audience, and we have other state members, what are your key drivers? What's the success story that you do? You also are doing a lot of solar, but wind, you have huge ample parks now. What is the success story you'd like to tell us? And what is Gujarat next phase of growth in wind?
Namaskar, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. There are numbers of initiatives has been taken by the state of Gujarat. We have come out with the solar policy in 2009. It was the country's first policy. And thereafter, sir, we have improving our policies based on the stakeholder consultation in 2016. Then after 2018, we came out with the hybrid policy. And in 2023, we have RE policy. And also, we'll come out with the integrated RE policy in future also. Our state has very, clear directions. There is no any confusion, stability in the government, and governments also provide supports. And to absorb the more and more REs, sir, that evacuation infrastructure is most important, and our focus is on evacuation infrastructure, and government is also investing on the evacuation infrastructures. Our state utility JETCOs is planning the network for the next 5-10 years also. And we have dedicated Akshay Urja Setu portal, which is a very transparent single window clearance portal for the RE connectivities. The most important is the credential of the off-taker. Sir, all the DISCOMs and GUVNLs have A+ rating. So our PPAs are bankable, and they can also get the loan very easily. Because of these are the drivers, we have achieved the 40 gigawatt installed capacity, and it's a Panchamrut commitment of 500 gigawatt. Gujarat has committed to contribute 20%, nearly 100 and plus gigawatt. So, sir, to reach this target by 2030, 40 plus, we have 15 gigawatt in pipeline, also 6 gigawatt from the industrial sector, 30 gigawatt from the Khavda RE Park, and we are bidding for the 20 gigawatt by 2028. So by 2030, we'll cross the 100 gigawatt. This is our roadmap, sir. Thank you.
100 gigawatt by 2030. As a state, I think that's an ambitious number you have put before all of us. It really encourages the sector and the stakeholders to really look at Gujarat as a prominent destination of investment. When I come to Rajasthan, of late, sir, what we have seen is, in spite of having such vast land and vast resource, your focus has been on solar. Sometimes, what we feel is obviously you achieved a lot, which I would request you to share as well. But do you have any plans for wind? And as I mentioned, the new regulation which allows us to utilize the grid during non-solar hours. What are your plans to go for utilization of those capacities where wind can coexist along with the existing solar, and some kind of battery can be added there? Please.
Yes, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank to the organizers for arranging such a wonderful event, and where all the wind energy stakeholders have been assembled. And it's a great honor and privilege for me to share the dais with all the state members, including the highest authorities from the Government of India also. So Rajasthan being the highest in RE installed capacity and close to 40.5 gigawatt, with solar as 34.5 gigawatt, and we have wind of 5.2 gigawatt. And very few other components like biomass and mini hydro. So, but in Rajasthan has, in the latest National Institute of Wind Energy, wind potential, Rajasthan has achieved the highest wind potential of at 150 meter hub height of 284 gigawatt. So earlier we were having separate policies like Rajasthan solar energy policy and wind energy policies, but in 2024 government has issued an integrated policy which is keeping at par for solar as well as wind sectors. So this would, with conducive ecosystems and policy enforcements and with all the stakeholders, it could achieve that. And we have registered around 10 gigawatt of wind projects in pipeline, which would be expected to commission in next 5 years. But for evacuation is a big concern. like all other members have also pointed out, that like as more and more capacity of RE is integrating in the system, so the evacuation of the RE is also a important task. So earlier we were having the solar capacity, majorly solar capacity, but solar and wind complement each other. So we are imposing the same benefits to the wind projects also. For transmission bottlenecks, we are working on 3-4 fronts. Like for one is the planning stage. For planning of the, we are coordinating as a state nodal agency. We are coordinating with the state transmission utility as well as central transmission utility also jointly, so that the joint action plan should be prepared. And state transmission utility has ambitious target of around 26,000 crore investment over a period of next 5 years for evacuation of the RE energy. And we have compensation framework also we put in, because the evacuation of the system, there are lot of local resistance, ROW issues. So for our solar project parks also, we have approved, with the approval of our board of directors, a policy framework where we are providing the tower compensation and ROW compensation for land. And the for these ROW issues are also being monitored at the highest level, as whether it would be a government of India from the PM Pragati portal, and from the state level, its highest authority like Chief Secretary of State Government monitors those transmission bottlenecks issues. And for that we have the district level committees also at the collector level, who monitors the issues and timely resolve these issues. So the district level committees are also very actively working on that.
No, that's really required. The kind of ROW that we are facing, the developers are facing, is enormous. So district level committees should be very useful and impactful to curb that. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, I think you have seen the kind of the vision that each state has and the government of India has towards wind. While we are, it's just 5 minutes for us to take this session to conclusion, I would just go back to each one of them. And sir, I start with MNRE. So what one key takeaway that you will ask us, or you will have expectations from the stakeholders in terms of what should we do now forward to meet the ambition that you have kept? Obviously 100 gigawatt is one, but what your advice, one key advice to the industry?
The advice will be to keep the momentum on, right, and increase your expansion and increase your activity to put in more and more wind energy. I'm sure in the days to come we'll see more demand for wind energy as part of our RTC requirement. And so remain optimistic.
Yes.
And keep believing in yourself and keep the momentum on.
Perfect. So that's and I'm sure we will live to that expectation. Sir, Tamil Nadu. Radhakrishnan, sir.
From Tamil Nadu, I will end by saying the same. If we have to maintain leadership in this, second we are there. If you have to come first and not go to third or fourth, we have to reboot, which we have already done, the repowering policy, and the same renewable energy policy itself. We are, apart from repowering policy, we are relooking at the renewable energy which was released just 2 years back to further address the concern of investors. Second is to create more transparency in the availability, so that there is no uncertainty among investors, because we are otherwise you have single spot of Muppandal where 1500 megawatt we are doing. So he should have Kaitar, some belts we are there where there has to be a assurance that if he invests that can be evacuated. Third is we are really driving hard to improve the corridor. See, it's not that we don't want to be transparent. The real problem is with the evacuation corridors. So we have huge potential in certain areas, but again evacuation, so much of investment has taken place, but last minute, that like Rajasthan or one other state was mentioning, no, I think our CES sir was mentioning, it's a linear thing. Even if 10 kilometers is left out, it is not. So that focus we are bringing to go back to the drawing board on these three issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Puneet sir, from Kerala, how do you see the one action that you expect us to take or you will take, both sides, sir?
As far as Government of Kerala is concerned, the draft power policy proposes a revision of the wind atlas, more wind mass for data collection, single window online approval systems and NIVE certified equipment to speed up the project implementation. I am sure that this will help the manufacturers also for increasing the DCR percentage. And the second thing is that focus on small wind turbines and micro wind systems, which are being piloted as the alternatives in areas where large wind farms are constrained, either by land or by the environmental regulations. Kerala has advantage of 35% of the area being covered by the forest. And this is the area where there is actually large potential, which is unlikely to be affected despite high population density. So these are the areas which need to be taken up by the industry, and accordingly manufacturers need to perhaps find out solutions for the states like Kerala and perhaps some of the other states where these kinds of similar constraints are there. Then improved transmission and distribution networks are certainly a necessity which have to be taken up for quick evacuation and handle the increased wind power generation. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good ask for the manufacturers to look at some different variants of turbines as well. Shivkumarji, how do you see this one key action that will be very, very important to hear from you?
Action or on top of my wish list would be to be able to award the first block of offshore wind energy system.
Wow.
And we as an industry, and we should be able to create the necessary ecosystem to attract the developers and to attract the supply chain. And second would be the industry, especially the manufacturing groups must look towards manufacturing country-specific wind turbines. As we are exhausting the high wind potential zones or sites, we must also focus to realize energy from the moderate wind potential zones. So we must focus on R&D and develop such turbines.
Excellent. I think that the new resource on the sidelines of the Indian coast, the offshore, I'm sure that will come in your highest priority. Thank you. Sir, what regulatory reform you would expect? One key that based on the experience, vast experience you have, what key action you are expecting, sir?
Yeah. See, I think now we need to have, more new products, whether it is power exchanges. So CRC, they have come up with virtual power purchase agreements. So I think that's a very right step. Now, just to give you an idea, virtual purchase agreement, so they really de-risk the projects because there is a, agreement between the generator and the buyer that he will be buying the power at particular rate. So actually, it's a virtual kind of an agreement. And then REC or what the renewable purchase consumption can also get met by the buyer. But since the price is already predetermined, so it's very clear that the project is de-risked. And another important aspect would be that power that is produced by the generator that can be sold in the power exchanges, and that will also deepen our power exchanges. So as you know that at present only around 7% of the power is transacted through power exchanges. So I think virtual power purchase agreements for which the draft, I think guidelines only have been issued, so we need to work further on them.
I think VPPA the industry is really looking forward for that reform. I'm sure a lot of RE projects will harness the benefit of VPPAs in future. Thank you, sir. I come back to you, sir. So your key action.
Karnataka, as a study, we have around at 150 meters hub height, we have around 169 gigawatt of potential, whereas the installed capacity is only 7 gigawatt. So there is an immense gap potential in Karnataka to explore. But as I mentioned, the solar itself is, especially the surplus power during daytime is, facing a challenge. And to offset this variability, the need for wind power is kicks in because it peaks during evening and the monsoon period. So that's going to be a perfect blend for the Karnataka's requirement. So the two things I think we have to focus. One, of course, the wind repowering. As Karnataka, the major areas which have got highest CUF are basically Chitradurga and Koppal Gadag places, where the smaller capacities windmills have been installed. So the repowering is one of the basic need. And the second thing, yes, as I mentioned, the huge tenders, the requirement is there for Karnataka around 40 gigawatt. So in all that, we are planning to blend, wind along with the solar and BESS. That's our plan.
That's a good takeaway for us. Maharashtra, Mr. Pise?
Sir, for development of wind in our state, I have some two, three suggestions for that. I think we should have some think tank like structure at central levels to resolve the small issues faced by the industry in the state. So that small, like we had a small hut, like structure removing, that was the issues faced by the developers for the 5-6 months. Small temporary structures that we need to come back to MNRE for resolving that issues. That issues can be handled at state level also. But if we have good think tank at state level to resolve small issues faced by the wind developers, we'll have better, we can go ahead with better.
Okay. So you are referring to the dwelling?
Yeah, dwelling issue, yeah. We have faced that we stopped development for last 1 year on the same issue.
Right.
And second thing, I think we should have some kind of rules for the compensating for ROW issues. If we have some rules for the compensation for the ROWs, that rules will be applicable everywhere. And once that rules is fixed, nobody should stop from developing the.
Okay. Thank you. Quickly, I think I got the signal that we are very close. Maybe Gujarat.
Actually, our focus should be on DRE, distributed renewable energy, and we should have some micro wind on our terraces. Okay. This is our new expectation.
Okay, that's another sector. Rajasthan.
No, it's not a suggestion, just it's intimation that on next week, in probably 7th of November, Rajasthan is we have a development of Pugal Solar Park of 2,450 megawatt capacity. So we have invited to all the stakeholders for it's a 5% BESS with 5% BESS. So okay. We will have the state level program at Jaipur.
Okay, thank you. I think with this, probably just to conclude about the policies and partnerships that the overall theme of this, the Windergy is, I think some of the key takeaways that I had reflected, one is the strong state center coordination is necessary to achieve the vision, which we see is reflected through this session. The policies are synchronized. The ambition is more or less the same. In fact, it increases or enhances the center's target. There is an urge to really target the transmission readiness, and I'm sure that urge will reflect into actions to see that the transmission is planned well ahead of the project planning that is done. And obviously, why we are here is based on the industry partnership with states, bringing local infrastructure, local jobs, local employment in terms of the way the industry has now moved to several states, right from Rajasthan to Tamil Nadu, that ecosystem reflects. So the Atmanirbharta is on the cards. The local content that we are all talking about in a wind turbine is drastically going to increase with the kind of way the policies are being designed. It's up to us now to be really focusing on those guidelines that the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has issued and see that there is robustness in our practices and we really achieve the 100 gigawatt goal. There is another goal that we all see that out of what we manufacture, can we now really reflect into exports to really meet some of the, or probably with a tagline of 10% by 2030. The ecosystem exists, and I thank each one, all of you first for being here, and obviously with the time that the dais has given to all of you today, it's very precise, very precious and important. I thank Sarangi sir, Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. In spite of all the efforts that he had, in fact, he was there in ISA. He is going to Guwahati after this session. So it's a busy session for busy days. I thank you from bottom of the heart, sir, for you gracing this occasion and giving us the confidence that we all are here to achieve that vision of 100 gigawatt plus. I thank ACS Dr. Radhakrishnan, I thank Dr. Puneet, Mr. Puneet Kumar, and all the other officers coming way from the respective headquarters. It's not easy to bring and get this dais on this stage. It's very difficult, and I thank the organizers for achieving this for the benefit of all. I thank you, sir, very much.
Jagannathan sir, may I request you to kindly present the mementos to all the speakers. First, thanking Secretary, sir. Thanking First Secretary, sir, Shri Santosh Kumar Sarangi ji. Thanking Shri Rudrappaiah ji. Our expression of thanks to Shri Puneet Kumar ji. Thanking Shri Siva Kumar ji. Thank you to Shri Arun Goyal ji. Thanking Shri Manoj PC sir. Thanking Shri Rajendra Valla ji. Special thanks to Shri Rajiv Singh ji. And may I now request Shri K. Bharti, the Treasurer IWTMA, to kindly present the memento thanking our moderator. Special one. Chota package, but we'll close with a group photograph. Sir, Jagdale sir, may I request you to also present it to Radhakrishnan ji? Just come. So we'll have another round of group photograph now.